selection. So with this selection, I can either go back into my layers palette and hit Control J, which will put my CD case on its own layer, as so, and then I can just click and drag this layer into my final piece. So what I'm going to do now, Control T or Edit Transform, and just resize the CD case to somewhere around, maybe a tiny bit smaller, somewhere around this size, and hit enter. Okay, so don't worry about the shadow for the moment. We're going to create the shadow later on. We're going to set the opacity of our CD case. We're just going to name this CD case here. And we're going to set its opacity to 50%. Now we're going to duplicate this layer, dragging it to here as we've done before. And we're going to set the opacity back to 100% and use a transfer mode of multiply. Now we're going to desaturate this top layer by just hitting Control Shift U, which will make it black and white. Now it's time to add the artwork into our CD case. So we're going to first duplicate this layer here, our CD case copy. And we're going to set the transfer mode back to normal. Now what we're going to do with this is use it as a prop. This prop we're going to use what's called vanishing point to get the proper perspective of our cover that we created onto our CD case. And we're going to apply our actual cover to this prop. So if we rename this prop, we're going to use this to apply our vanishing point to. Now we're going to go back into our artwork that we created. If we bring up our CD cover again, I'll bring up the original one actually. So if we go File, Open, CD cover, and this is the one with all your layers inside here. So what I want to do is I want to merge all these layers together. Quick shortcut for doing that is Control Shift E. You can also go into Layer and choose Flatten Image. Now I want to select the entire canvas. Shortcut for that is Control A. And now I'm going to copy this canvas. So just Control C for copy. So this cover is now ready to be pasted into our CD. So if we go back into our final image, and on the prop layer here, if we go to, make sure you're selected on the prop layer, go to Filter and Vanishing Point. Okay. So what we want to do is create a plane inside of Vanishing Point. So you can see at the top left here we have our create plane, and we're just going to use the 4 points of the extremities of the CD to create this plane. Around here. I'm going to adjust it slightly. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is extend the plane in all directions. And extend it here. Okay, good. Now all I have to do inside of Vanishing Point is, because I hit Control C, I'm going to Control V, paste our image into here. Should come in. And then I'm going to hit the transform tool and transform my actual image. I'm going to zoom out a bit. Alt click, hit on my transform tool. Okay, and I'm going to hold down, make sure to hold down Shift and resize my cover into this box here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to see what I'm doing a bit better. Back to my transform tool, holding down Shift all the time for resizing and moving this around. Okay, so when you're finished aligning this perfectly, just hit OK. This is good enough for now. And we can see we've pasted our image into here. Now at the moment you can see our edges are slightly jaggedy. Well, edges will always appear slightly jaggedy because you can see in the view window if it's set at an odd number, let's say 42.6%, your image will always appear slightly jaggedy. It'll only appear clear in 25%, 50%, 75% and 100. So if I go into 50%, I can see a bit more clearly what's going on here. So now I'm going to use my blur tool. I'm going to use a little small brush, soft edge, strength set at 50%, and I'm just going to blur around the edges a bit more just to make them a bit less harsh. As you can see, I could have lined it up this tiny bit better in Vanishing Point tool, which you can do. It's fine for the example. Okay, so I've applied my actual image to my prop, and I don't need my prop anymore. So I want to get rid of that duplicate from the background and just keep the actual label, the actual cover. So I'm going to use my polygonal selection tool, lasso tool, just to make a selection just around the label. Here, 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 and here. And if I right click inside the selection, if I choose layer via cut, it will cut out my original prop layer and just simply drag this into the bin to delete it so we can see our nice transparent edges that we have. Okay, just going to realign this slightly because I didn't do a great job in the Vanishing Point tool. That's okay. So what I'm going to do now is just name this label. And now we're going to create some reflections. So I'm just going to create a new layer. So what I want to do first is on the label layer, hold down Control and click it. Control click. This will make a selection out of the actual label. And then if I hit Control Shift and N, this will create a new layer for me out of that selection. So I'll just name this reflection. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is use the gradient tool to create a reflection. If I hit the gradient tool here, it might be you might have the paint bucket up, but just click and hold left click and hold down to get the extra options in your tools menu bar. So if I choose gradient here, I'll have a different selection of gradients. So if I left click on my gradients here, here's where I can customize my own gradients for the project. On top we have our opacities, what they're going to be, and at the bottom we can choose our colors just by double clicking on the actual pointers here. Now what I want to do is create a gradient from white, which starts at opacity 30%, and I want to create it going to white. It's a white at the moment on the other side, but to an opacity 30% white to 0%. Okay, and that's fine. So then all we have to do is left click and hold down, and we'll go to around, let's say around there, the 2/3 of the way down of our CD cover to actually create our gradient. The next step is to create another layer. So with our label still selected, we're going to hit Control Shift N to create a new layer. We'll call this Reflection 2. And what we're going to do is create another gradient, except with we're actually going to create brush strokes inside here. So if I choose my brush, I'm going to choose different shades of grey. So what I want is just to keep painting in grey at different brush sizes. So let's say at the moment, if I hold down Shift it will go at an angle for me. It will keep straight. Whoop. Hold on, shift. Okay. Keep on making that a mistake. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead here to show you what the finished product, what you should try and copy just for this different shades of grey that you'll be creating. Okay, so this is the actual final product. You want to create something similar to this. So this might take a few minutes, you know, around 5 minutes, just using different brush sizes, bigger and smaller, and just moving up and down the grayscale area, creating different shades of grey. Now when you're finished that, on our reflection 2 layer that we've just created, our different grey areas, we're going to set the transfer mode to soft light, and we can also change the opacity if it's still a bit too much. Around there, let's say. And hit Control D to get rid of the selected area. And that's it for the moment for the reflections. That is the reflections done. Now we're going to add a drop shadow. So we're going to go back down to CD case copy. It is the layer that has the transfer mode set to multiply. And if we double click on that layer, we'll get our different layer styles up. So if I click on drop shadow and actually click on it, I'll get the different drop shadow options up. So if you can see, if I change this, exaggerate it, you can see a drop shadow appearing under the case. So I want a small enough drop shadow, let's say setting that 21, it might change for you. And I'm gonna set the size to around 18 pixels and increase our distance again. Okay, so that's not too bad. Maybe that's a bit too far to make it look like it's off the ground. Decrease my distance a little bit. You can change the angle of the shadow as well if you like. This angle works for me. And a nice soft subtle drop shadow there. And then click OK. Now we're going to add a bit of emphasis to the actual center of our image. Okay, so I'm just going to create a new layer. As we said before, we can go Control-Shift-N, or you can click this button down here, create a new layer. And I'm going to use the gradient tool again. And in my options menu up here, I'm going to use the radial gradient. And what I'm going to choose is a simple one between black and white. So this should be 100% black, and this should be opacity 100%